Hey, I'm Lucy Dacus, and this is the LSQ podcast.
Okay, Lucy, you are recording.
Swag.
If for whatever reason, this stops being read.
Did you just say swag? That's old school.
Yeah, we've been saying swag.
You're bringing swag back in 2021.
Yeah, it was actually Jacob that started that, and all of us were very resistant for a time, but he was so persistent that
Yeah, no, I'm all for it, like, it being a little too soon, to bring it back.
It does feel too soon, but I think that's part of the joke. Also, like, I live with 6 people, and the inside jokes just get, like, baked and rebaked. Like, especially over quarantine, I feel like our sense of humors were completely, like, corrupted. Like, we just, like, I don't actually know what's funny anymore.
6 people, wow. So are you in a house?
Yeah. I live in Philly in, like, a giant house, and we moved there, like, a couple months into lockdown. I had a dream about it, and I, like, saw all my friends there, and then I went on Zillow, and I found, like, there was one house for rent, like, in this neighborhood I wanted to live in, and I called them all, and I was like, do you want to move to Philly? And they're like, sure. So, like, people came from Chicago and Richmond, and
that's awesome. And I mean, I'll pause briefly to say, hey, Lucy Dacus, welcome to the LSQ podcast. And it's so good to see you again. I want to say for listeners before we get back into the conversation that you and I connected recently for a briefer chat for SiriusXMU for the session that you played. And that was more focused on the new album Home Video, whereas this conversation will, be more zoomed out kind of look at your creative adventure
cool.
in the larger sense. But thanks for getting together to do this. And we did talk a little bit last time about your relocation to Philly. And so, yeah, I'd love to have you tell me a bit more about kind of what brought you to Philly and began this sort of, well, if I'm going to go, I'm going to get my dream house together as well.
Yeah, I think it was just time. I had only ever lived in Richmond, and it was getting weird. For a couple different reasons. Some people, like, found out where I lived and were just, like, showing up to my house, which is scary. And then, yeah, I'd only ever lived there, so, like, I knew a lot of people in town, and I felt kind of, like, a lot of really kind support, but also some resentment, and it was just, like, I ended up not really leaving my house that much. It was just, like, too much.
And how did you choose Philly?
We have a lot of friends there. It's, like, still kind of close to Richmond. It's closer to New York. I don't want to live in New York, but I have to go there all the time. So it's nice to be closer. There's public transit. There's, like, I think, like, a lot of room to do stuff in Philly. Like, I know a lot of, like, community organizers, and I think people are, like, really disillusioned with the government in a good way. And, like, just provide for each other, which is nice.
So how long have you been there now?
Since, like, the very end of 2019, like 3 days left of 2019.
Do you feel like that's it? You found your home for a while, like you could settle in for an indefinite?
I think so. I don't want to be anywhere else right now.
I mean, you put together your dream combination of housemates for now.
I know.
So,
yeah. I feel like,
although you may want to not live with 5 people or 6 people at some point in the future.
I've thought about that, but I don't know. I like living around people. Like, I dissociate. Like, that's something I have to deal with. It's so annoying. So it's really nice to have people kind of, like, rustling about to remind me, like, that I exist. If I'm alone, I can just, like, zone out for a really long time. I think I need, like, 4 days of alone time every 3 months, and that's all I need.
Let's talk about kind of your earliest moments of feeling creative. When did you first start to be drawn to expressing yourself through art?
Well, my dad had this rule that boredom was a curse word, and we weren't allowed to say it. Like, I'm bored, we would get punished. And the way we would get punished is he'd be like, you have to go draw a picture, or you have to go read a book, or, like, basically, like, do something to not be bored anymore.
So what would you do then as a little kid when you were bored and you had to do something?
I wrote a lot of books and like illustrated them. I was just reflecting upon this book that I wrote about brothers, Justin, Time, and oh my gosh, what was the other brother's name? I wrote it down recently. And Nick O. Time, like the middle name was Oliver or something. And they were like these time traveling brothers who were always time traveling to like the wrong spots, and they were always trying to find each other in time.
Wow, that's cool.
Maybe it could be cool, but like it wasn't, because I was like 8, you know. I also had this story about this owl who was really shy and this turtle who was like in love with him but like couldn't get him to hang out with her. There were a lot of stories like this.
I'm resisting the urge to psychoanalyze. It's interesting.
Oddly enough, with all the like reflection that I do, I've never thought to psychoanalyze those things. But you're totally right. I should think more about that.
Well, it's also interesting that other kids could have had their parents discourage them from zoning out when they're bored or something like that, and they wouldn't necessarily have written multiple books, right? So
Yeah,
you must
I
have
guess
in
that's
there the encouragement to do something other than being bored, lit the fire of something you naturally were going to enjoy doing. Like, did you, as you're writing these stories, did you get off on it? Or did you love it?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I did it in my free time too. I used to just like write and write and write, like basically play pretend, but with a pen and paper. But yeah, when you're a kid, you just like think up whatever.
And we talked a little bit about this when last we spoke, because I'm realizing now the kind of overlap in that with the fact that you were not allowed to listen to secular music as a kid, because so the idea of writing songs probably didn't occur to you as immediately because music was a different thing, right?
I did write songs because like I listened to like some secular music. I get like my dad loves Bruce Springsteen, my mom loved Prince. My dad didn't like Prince, and he didn't like that I was listening to Prince, but that's neither here nor there.
Is there a reason why Bruce is an exception to the rule for your dad? Like, does he have a rationale about Bruce's pureness or something? Because
I don't know if he would put it into words like that. I feel like it just was never not a thing about my dad. It's like one of his biggest personality traits. I think that like
liking Bruce.
Yes, like every day he's on the like Facebook fan pages. He listens to the Serious Bruce channel. He's always sending me like, "Oh, I heard this live performance from 76. Let me send it to you." Like, yeah, it's constant for
Has
him.
he
And
ever
I think
seen Bruce in concert?
I think like 13 times.
Wow,
But
cool.
I have never seen Bruce in concert, and it's like I was telling someone last night, that's like one of my highest priorities, like not even within the category of music. I mean, in my entire life, like that has to happen or else I'm going to regret it forever. So I've told him like the next time Bruce puts out tour dates, I'm just getting us tickets.
Yeah.
And that is, we'll do whatever to make it. Time is not to be wasted.
Did it rub off on you as a kid, or what's your relationship with Bruce's music all about?
I hated it at first because I thought his voice wasn't good. Like, Dad, why are you listening to this? It sounds terrible. And then I listened to the words and then realized that I do like his voice. It's just like an acquired taste, I guess.
Yeah, similar to Dylan, I suppose.
Yeah. And Dylan, like I never listened. I don't think I've ever listened to a Bob Dylan record, like front to back. I feel like I've missed out on tons of staples like that, and I don't know why I don't really have like the drive to go listen. I think like the people that have inspired so many other people, I like almost want to just like preserve the other stuff. Like I don't want to find out that a lot of my favorite music is a ripoff. So I don't want to listen to Bob Dylan. But maybe that's a stupid reason.
But what were
Mm-hmm.
the things that you felt, the music artists that you felt like the way your dad is with Bruce, initially as a kid, the first time you felt really drawn to an artist, like you needed to consume more and know more?
Led Zeppelin in middle school, I was like, this rocks, because I was listening to a lot of like All Time Low and like Panic at the Disco with my friends, and like I don't know, just like those kind of like boy band emo bands. And then I was like, Led Zeppelin, that feels like real music. And then I wouldn't say that I feel the same anymore,
Were
but
Led Zeppelin the Panic of the Disco of their era? Discuss amongst yourselves.
oh my god. That feels like a hot take type of question.
I actually
Um,
think that Blink 182 is the Led Zeppelin of their generation in terms of like I hear music nowadays like bedroom pop artists who are so deeply influenced by Blink 182, but it like, in a way that you have to have been through Blink 182 to appreciate or something.
yeah.
And did
The
you
bands that like high school, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that like the bands that I feel like I still stand by getting super into were like Yola Tango, Broken Social Scene, and the Ramones. Those were bands in high school that I was like just so.
Did something change to make you find that stuff or start finding like the more underground things that maybe appeal to you more?
Yeah, I grew up like in the county, like kind of a rural suburban area, and nobody was listening to cool music pretty much at all. But then I like went to this nerd high school in the city, and all those kids like had patches on their jackets, and like all of them had the cool dads with the big CD collection at home. And yeah, people were just recommending me stuff, making me mix CDs and mixtapes, and um yeah, that was a huge currency, was like the mixed CD, like the burnt CD. You'd like make your album art, and you'd like try to communicate a message through the titles or the lyrics. That was like a super formative exchange. I'm wondering if like playlists do the same thing for teens. I mean, I'm still making playlists for people, but I wonder if they're like as romantic or dramatic.
When did you start like finding young artists? Like did you go to shows in high school or college at all? Was there stuff to see around where you were living at the time?
Yeah, Richmond had, I don't know about has because I'm not there, and I don't know, it seems a little different, but it had a really amazing local music scene. And there were like full like local band bills every night of the week, and nobody was really like trying to make it. Like it felt very just earnest and like a community thing. And that's like how
Where would you go? Where was the main place you would go?
um well, there was a venue called Strange Matter that is gone now. That's so beloved. Gallery Five's another place. Sometimes the Camel. But a lot of houses. There's a house called Johnny Cave and Our House and Sour House, and I lived at a house called Bow House, and we hosted bands a lot. But yeah, or sometimes people would just throw a house show as a one-off because somebody wrote a song and they wanted to show it to people. Which
I mean, and at this point are you starting to write your own songs and play them?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've never not written songs. Like when I was a little kid, I would write little tunes, but it was just to do something. And then in middle school, I would write songs with friends as like an activity, because I got a guitar. And then in high school, I started like writing my own songs, but it didn't feel like it was for other people. So I started like playing shows because I had friends and bands that were like, "Hey, we need an opener. We're making you do this. We're putting you on the poster. Show up. You have 20 minutes." And that was very aggressive, but also ultimately kind of them to peer pressure me into that.
How long was it before you started to feel like, no, fuck it, I like this actually? It turns out it's not just peer pressure.
I think I never disliked it. I never thought it could be a job, even like into it being my job. I was like, this is gonna fall out from under me. I need to like keep in touch with the photo lab so they can be hiring me seasonally. Haven't needed to go back to the photo lab, which is nice.
I
That
mean, I guess I'm curious if you saw when you started to see yourself as a performing artist, and if you ever saw yourself sort of as like, no, that's not me. I'm gonna do this other. I'll be this other thing.
Yeah, it's hard. I still feel weird being like, I'm a musician. Like, clearly I am. Like, it's literally what I do. I'm in Nashville right now, like, about to record more music. But, yeah, I think because I never took classes or, like, I know so many better musicians, like, I feel like maybe I'm a writer and it's just taking the form of music right now. I feel a little bit better just saying that I'm a writer. But yeah, I was like getting into photography and it's like cool, I could just like do headshots, work an office job, like keep my overhead low and let that happen for a while and do music like for fun. I didn't really have any big schemes, which is weird because I love scheming. Scheming and dreaming are like my favorite activities.
But I mean, but at some point it must have kind of pivoted to where you got like ambitious about this, where you were like, I'm doing it, and if I'm going to do it, here's how I want it to be. Here's the kind of artist I want to be.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I've actually never said something like that to myself, but
Right.
I did like basically I recorded my first record here with you saw Jacob and Colin before they left, but it was Jacob's school project, and so he's like, "Do you have enough songs?" Because he was studying guitar. So the point of that wasn't to go get a career, but a local label put it out in Richmond, and then a bunch of other labels started contacting me and agents and managers and stuff. It was just this like onslaught. And I was like, well, here's an option I never considered. And I've been thinking recently how like I kind of envy my friends that like grew up in major cities that were like around this more because I had zero insight. And also I had never dreamed of it. Whereas like I wish that I had wanted all of this because it would hit different. Like it would feel like I did it. I had a goal and I reached it. Whereas like I actually wouldn't describe myself as ambitious. I mean like I want to be happy. And I think there's lots of ways to do that. That's like my ambition.
Yeah, but also I guess about I'm curious for you when because it also just matters what satisfaction you get from doing the thing mostly, right? Because we've got to those of us who have to do something to earn income, like if you can actually feel like satisfied by it, intellectually or emotionally or whatever, it's just such a privilege, to have that be the situation with what you do for income, right? And you must deeply get something out of writing songs, whether or not anyone else likes it. Like, how do you know when a song you're working on is in the right spot? Is feels like what you're trying to do here.
Yeah. I guess
No,
it's
that's a
kind of
complex question.
yeah, it's like amorphous. It is more of a feeling than anything else. And there are songs that I write that I'm like, this isn't gonna work. This feels too forced, or I just can't finish it, or the thought is too obvious, or the thought is too obtuse. There's lots of things that I think, like, I just put them on the back burner and maybe I'll pick them up in like years and finish it later. I've done that with plenty of songs and songs that have turned up on records where like I've started it many years before and then finished it many years later because I just didn't know what to say originally.
But do you find that the best case scenario songs like that it feels like it feels good to you? That
Yeah,
there's a feeling you get that you can identify when you're like, ooh, I like
yeah.
this.
Most of my favorite songs that I've written have taken about 15 minutes to write. Like Night Shift, Thumbs, I Don't Want to Be Funny. All the ones that I think do like work the best, like people respond really well to, took what felt like not that much effort to write. And maybe that's because like I'd been sitting on a thought for so long that it just kind of crystallized suddenly. Um, so yeah, but I get scared because I'm like, what if I won't have that feeling? Though I did. I mean, I've written quite a bit through lockdown in that same vein of just like not trying to write because anything I write now, like it's gonna be years before anybody hears it because I'm like putting out this record.
You just put out a record, yeah.
Yeah, like I wrote stuff over a year ago, or there's songs that I wrote years ago, and they won't be heard for years. So it's like not actually that nice of an idea to like write a bunch of stuff right now, because sitting on this record was bad. I hated it. Like, I mean, I still am proud of it, but like, I don't know. I wanted people to hear this stuff like so long ago. I'm happy people are hearing it now, but yeah.
So what's your writing practice look like? I mean, do you have any kind of a, sort of routine you use?
Um, it's more like I know the conditions. It feels like going fishing, where it's like I know what conditions I'll probably find the fish. So I'll like go on a walk or be on a train or a plane or in a car. Being in transit really helps. It feels like a liminal space. And I think that if I'm in like a liminal space, I'm allowed to say more things. Like if I am not kind of burdened by having a role or a context, it's easier to just kind of reach whatever. Um, so I don't like sit down in an office, but I usually like write all the lyrics and melody at the same time and then pick up the guitar and figure out the chords.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do the lyrics suggest the melody or vice versa?
I think when I'm singing the words, it's like the melody is like emphasis, just making certain words like punchier or elongating them. You know, you like, you want to invoke like the emotion that you're trying to communicate.
Who are the artists? I mean, and obviously you're friends with a lot of artists who are also making music currently, and Boy Genius, of course, and you get to collaborate with a couple of other really talented singer-songwriters. But who are some of the other artists of roughly your generation who inspire you and who make you feel like, you know what, like it's we're out here doing it?
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny. I hung out with Mitski yesterday, and I was realizing because she's taken this hiatus that I haven't been listening to her music because I'm like, oh, she doesn't want to be perceived. And so I don't even interact with her recordings, and just, you know, see her when I see her. But I think she's so good. I think that, like, I don't know, the way we were talking about, like, Bob Dylan inspiring so many people, I kind of feel like a lot of people are going to be making music inspired by Mitski. Clearly,
Absolutely.
I'm constantly inspired by Julian and Phoebe as like people, but also writers and um, who the hell else?
Do you think that collaborating in that project and in other collaborations you've done, I'm sure that does it help you to see your own kind of craft differently, when you go back to doing things on your own?
Yeah, I feel like artists that I like the most are people that I have the response of like, you can do that? You're allowed to do that? And like maybe you're allowed to do anything, but I think subconsciously I put up a lot of like barriers. And so even like Andy Schaaf, I think is a underrated songwriter, like listening to The Party, being like, "Oh, you can do that? You can be that cinematic and that specific and you can talk about this type of emotion and like anxiety in this way." And um Brittany Howard, I think, is like a modern legend. Just like both songwriting and like arranging and production of her records. I don't know. I think that I'm like listening to like her music and Alabama Shakes really changed how I do recording. Like I feel like they just opened up a lot of sonic space, or like those possibilities feel more present.
And what about like just sort of as a live performer? what are some, has it sort of always felt the same for you, or did you have to kind of adapt to it, or find a way of looking at it to get into it?
It's weird. I don't feel like I'm performing when I'm on stage, and I wish that I did. I've been thinking about this a lot, like, because my dad took so many home videos when I was a kid, and my mom was involved in theater, and so, like, I would just be, like, in the ensemble, or I wanted to do theater because it's what she did, and it's what my friends did, but I never had, like, the voice or, like, the larger-than-life stage presence. I've always kind of been observed and on stages and asked to perform, even if it's like perform happiness for my dad for the camera. So I guess I'm like somewhat comfortable doing it, but I don't have like a persona, and I kind of wish that I did. And like, I'm still adjusting and learning how to be a good performer. Because my only thing that I do is just show up so far. And I guess that's, like, some people like that. It works, honestly. I probably don't need to, like, fix anything. Like, the shows are good, but I'm just being myself. Whereas, like, it would maybe feel more stable if I had, like, a plan of what to do and how to act and, like...
Maybe, but I bet if you asked Bruce, he just would say, yeah, that's what he does. He just shows up and gets on stage and is himself.
Yeah. Someone told me last night that they don't make a set list ever. And he has like a super fan that tours with him that can tell whatever song he's starting to play by the opening chords. And the super fan will like send the song to monitors that are in front of the rest of the band. So Bruce just, like, plays whatever occurs to him next. Like, he's just feeling it. It's like, I'm going to play this one. And then the band, like, just has to follow suit.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
My brain, like, smoke would come out of my ears. I would just be frozen, just like, what song do we play?
I know. Same. Yeah. I, like, we put a lot of thought into the set list. Occasionally I'll change it if I'm feeling, like, really saucy, or if somebody's, like, requesting a song. I do try to play requests. That's something, I guess that's not really a performance thing, but if anybody, I actually have a document that if anybody like tags me and says play this in the city, I'll like put it in a note and be like, okay, we have to play this song. Because I don't know, I've noticed, I did like a signing yesterday, and I did 2 last week, like 1 Philly, 1 New York, 1 here in Nashville, and all of the stores remarked like, this is the nicest group of people that have come into the store. I'm like, I know. I think that like I've just spoken like a little bit online about how I would like to be treated, and I think actually people have listened, and I feel so lucky because I feel like my fan base are like people that I actually like. And there've been like the stray people who've made me feel unsafe, and like that could happen this next tour. And maybe I've had a long enough break from it because of quarantine that I'm feeling really optimistic. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of mutual respect, and like maybe I don't need a defense mechanism because I can just communicate and say, treat me like this, please. And hopefully people respond.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you 3 albums in, it's like there is a relationship with your audience of respect, where your audience, like, they know who you are, and you can direct them or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, if anyone listening to this does anything to bum Lucy out on tour, I'm going to come to your town. I'm going to punch you in the face. Thank you so much for connecting with me to do this. It's lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, it's so nice to talk. It just feels like a regular-ass conversation.
Regular-ass conversation. Thanks again to Lucy Dacus for that awesome regular-ass conversation. And she's got a tour starting in early September, beginning in her native Richmond, Virginia. LucyDacus.com for additional info. I'm Jenny LSQ. That brings us to the end of episode 65 of the LSQ podcast. I'm excited to share a new one in a few weeks with Goo Goo Dolls' John Resnick, and episodes farther into the fall with Adam from The War on Drugs and Courtney Barnett, both of whom have albums coming. And you can reach me with questions and feedback, etc. on Twitter @JennyLSQ. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you next time.